over the past probably 100 years now, there's been a sort of an obsessive quest to find the historical Jesus. The Jewish young rabbi, find how tall was he, where he lived, what he ate. We dig up half of Israel looking for archaeological evidence. And one of the big temptations of that is that eventually the historical Jesus begins to look like the priests and lay people who are looking for him. They start to project themselves onto that Jesus, and we lose the Jesus of faith. And so, but of course, digging up Capernaum has been a great idea, because it means that we can really get an idea of how today's gospel story worked. So say, for example, probably the distance that Jesus was from the centurion's house as he was coming into Capernaum is probably from about here to the end of the shrine. So not far at all. It was just a little village. Another thing we need to understand is that for a Roman living in the Holy Land, the Jews were like savages. They probably considered them to be sort of somewhat less than human. And you can see this from the formation like a young Roman centurion would have had. He's probably doing a military posting for maybe 3 to 5 years before his family will call him back to Rome and maybe get some sort of job involved in the lower ranks of the Senate or the government, then maybe another military posting as he works his way up the ranks of Roman society. Very strictly governed, very strictly educated, very strict on personal hygiene, very strict in a sense of the masculine virtues that a Roman citizen should embody. And sort of wandering around the Holy Land, really, they would be looking at the Jews thinking that these people are savages. From the Jews' perspective, the city of Rome didn't have a military garrison. Probably the nearest legion that could be called on in time of trouble for the city would have been about 200 miles outside of Rome, and Rome was policed by the Praetorian Guard. But on the peripheries of the empire was where the heaviest presence of the legions was. So the Holy Land, bordering not too far from the Persian Empire, which at that time was a serious political and military adversary of the empire, there would have been a very, very heavy Roman presence in the Holy Land. And you can just imagine, even today, when there's a heavy presence militarily in the Middle East, just how much the locals resent that. So here we've got, on the one side, this Roman officer thinking these people are, to use the Disney word, savages, they're barely even human. The Jews thinking, this guy, his armies are an affront to our religion, to our civilization. And then Jesus walks onto the scene. And these Pharisees and Sadducees who hate Jesus, we know that they hate him, are saying, but this guy shows their hypocrisy, who happens to be part of the military operation here. He's given us money, he's built us a synagogue, so therefore, you should do him a favor. You can just imagine what's going through our Lord's minds. And then the centurion, despite his background, despite the fact that he comes from the most cultured part of the ancient world, and he's here in this outpost of the empire, he acknowledges that Jesus is the Lord. He acknowledges it in such a way that he does it with supernatural faith that enables a miracle. And that's kind of incredible. And sometimes we can come to Mass and we can just go through, and I do it too. You sit here and you're listening to the first reading, and before you know it, we're through the Gospel and we're into the Creed or we're past the homily. But, the writers of the Gospels put a lot of time and thought into what they wanted us to hear Sunday after Sunday, day after day. And this is an incredible story of two civilizations meeting, and a superior civilization, or someone from that superior civilization, recognizing that out of this far-flung province has come the Son of God. And Jesus says, not even in Israel have I found faith like this. And the miracle is performed. And it really links in then to sort of Paul's reading, the first reading, where we may find ourselves as Catholic Christians living in a regime or under a government that does not share our values. I think you've probably seen that with, I keep on getting this name wrong, the Member of Parliament, Rees-Mogg, who spoke out in favour of life a couple of weeks ago. And he's been trashed on social media and in media in this country. And so we will often find ourselves in a situation where we are a minority theologically, we are a minority in a country as Catholics, trying to just live and be peaceable. So we obey the laws of those countries, just as Jesus was doing in the gospel. But that doesn't in any way impede the power of the mission, because the power of the mission transcends all that. And what these things are telling us is that, England could become completely atheistic. But as long as there's someone in Walsingham or Norfolk or Southeast England or Wales or England, Wales and Scotland to actually make an act of faith, miracles will occur and the church will still flourish. And that should be a cause of great encouragement and hope for us.